Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Manifestation Monday live stream with me, Dr. Aparajita Jirigunta. I am the founder and CEO of AJ Rao, and what all of that means is that I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant and coach, as well as, excuse me, a whole person leadership development coach. And so I talk about all things leadership development related, as well as diversity, equity, and intentional inclusion related. And so welcome to the live stream. If you are watching this live, please make sure you put hashtag live or comment or let me know you're here somehow. And any live that you're watching with anyone, this is just a tip I like to give out because nobody wants to sit there and think they're talking to the abyss. So anytime you're watching a live, let the person know that you're there, just so they know that they're talking to people and not into the abyss. So if you're here watching, let me know. I'd love to know. And if you're watching this later, please make sure you put your comments and I can address them. So with all of that said, I want to get right into it today. On Friday, I talked about culturally responsive emotional intelligence, and actually it's culturally competent emotional intelligence, because cultural competence, cultural responsiveness is just a part of cultural competence overall. And I'll get into the components of cultural competency in detail in another day. But when we're talking about cultural competence, we're talking about cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, cultural humility, and cultural responsiveness. All four of those make up cultural competence. Now, one thing I do differently is I use emotional intelligence certification training, and I combined them with my expertise in cultural management from my academic background and all of my experience to create this model of culturally competent emotional intelligence. And on Friday, I told you why that's important. And today I want to give you, and so today's live stream is not going to be super long, but I want to give you 3 things that culturally competent emotional intelligence solves better in your business, whether you're in the corporate space, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're in the nonprofit management space, or you are a consultant. So these are 3 things that come up in all team spaces, and they especially come up anytime we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And really training yourself, practicing and developing culturally competent emotional intelligence helps you solve these better. And the second I put these 3 points up, you're going to go, oh, duh, that's so obvious, but let's go through it anyway. And I have a couple of stories to go with them, so I want to talk to you about those. So number 1, when you get trained in culturally competent emotional intelligence. So when you combine this cultural competence framework with emotional intelligence framework, the first thing you can do is, as a leader, you can handle microaggressions better. All of us know that microaggressions happen across all of our spaces, especially with those who have been historically marginalized. Things like, hey, can I pronounce your name differently? Can I give you a nickname? Like for me, I actually had a former leader, when they found out my name was Aparajita, they said, well, can I start calling you Amanda from today? No. And that is a microaggression because you are devaluing my identity, right? And these kind of microaggressions happen. These and so many other kind of microaggressions actually happen in our workspaces and in our business dealings every single day, all the way from changing names to, can I touch your hair, to, oh, why are you taking that so personally? It has nothing to do with you. Microaggressions expect you to change your personal narrative for the sake of the other person. So if you are the person who is the microaggressor, what you are doing is you are demeaning the other person's lived experience to fit your narrative, to fit your framework. Now, emotional intelligence is extremely powerful at managing your own emotions and at managing and mitigating other people's emotions. But we also talked about it on Friday, how it can be used for harm. A lot of highly emotional intelligent people think that because they are emotional intelligent that they are not perpetuating microaggressions when in fact they are. When we add culturally competent emotional intelligence, we understand the unique cultural expressions of other people, so we reduce microaggressions and we handle microaggressions better in our communications and also in how we respond to when we hurt somebody and they come back and then they obviously look not happy and they say that they're not happy and they call us in on it. We know how to respond better to microaggressions. So in handling microaggressions as an individual contributor or as a leader managing teams, culturally competent emotional intelligence is far more powerful than the traditional emotional intelligence framework, because again, it helps you unlearn all of these biases you have inside of you. Number 2, handling and training on negotiations. This is something that at least in my experience, I've seen a lot of kind of standardization and kind of, you should know your worth and just pull yourself up by your bootstraps sort of language, which is incredibly interesting. Granted, negotiations for women and negotiations for men have been separated, but as people, we have a lot more layers than just our gender expression. In fact, some of us don't even identify as men or women. All of us have many, many, many layers of intersectionalities. Culturally competent emotional intelligence allows us to understand other people's intersectionalities with much greater nuance than just the traditional emotional intelligence framework. For instance, I love telling this story because it's also an incredible success story. I recently had a client, a person who jumped on me with a strategy call, and there are specific questions that they wanted to pick my brain about, which I ended up picking their brain to give them clarity. But what they wanted to talk to me about was their pricing. They are a public speaker, and they reached out to me to talk about how they should structure their pricing tiers. Now, this is somebody who identifies as a woman and is also a woman of color. So first off, right off the bat, looking at this person's pricing structure, I could tell they were severely, severely undercharging because they felt like they were going to get denied or that nobody was going to listen to them if they raised their prices. Now, using regular emotional intelligence, we can talk through the fear and all of that, and sort of the fear of selling, the fear of success, the fear of failure, entrepreneurial mindset, so on and so forth, using just the traditional emotional intelligence framework. However, keeping in mind that this is a woman of color who has also gone through and internalized all of the systemic barriers that are in place for her. For instance, in corporate spaces, there are a whole multitude of reasons, far more than just, it's because I'm a woman and I don't feel like I'm worth it. A whole bunch of systemic barriers that impede a woman of color from negotiating her true worth. When you use a culturally competent emotional intelligence framework, I was able to talk her through this and come up with a price point with her, a pricing structure with her, for her, that immediately worked. And literally 40 minutes later, she said, she messaged me back and said she booked a speaking gig using this new pricing structure where she did not feel like she had to fight an uphill battle against any of the barriers, and there was no resistance from the other side because it felt fair across the board. And so without any questions, they immediately sent her the contract with this new price point, which was more than 4 times her previous price point. That's how much she was undercharging. So we did not, when we set up this pricing structure, we did not overprice her. It's just that she was underpricing because of the systemic barriers that she had faced over the course of her whole life. Now, if I weren't culturally competent and if I did not understand all of these intersectionalities and how they played a role in her life, I would not have been able to train her and to kind of give her that pricing structure and then train her on how to negotiate when she did face resistance. In this case, she did not even face resistance because the price point was so fair to her true worth, and to the parties that she is serving as a speaker and a trainer. That happens when you train yourself as a culturally competent emotional intelligence practitioner. Finally, the third one, conflict management. This one, again, it should be obvious, but maybe it's not. So let's dig into it. There are so many stereotypes out there with across all intersectionalities. For instance, the angry Black woman trope, the submissive Asian woman trope, the overqualified Asian man trope. I can't even get into all of the tropes and stereotypes for non-binary folks, for Native Americans, for Hispanics, the idea of being underqualified or misrepresenting. Can you imagine as a leader, if you actually train yourself to be a culturally competent, emotionally intelligent leader, how you can manage conflict one-on-one as well as in between all of the diverse parties in your teams and groups? Because at that point, when you tap into that culturally competent emotional intelligence, you can then honor everybody, honor every single person because of their journeys, because of their intersectionalities, because of their lived experiences, without leaning into stereotypes, biases, prejudice, and subtle, covert discrimination in terms of your actions. You can actually support and you can actually manage and resolve conflict with good, holistic leadership communication that allows your team members, your clients, your customers, whomever they are, that allows them and empowers them to realize that you care for them, that you are there to empower them, that you are there to help them thrive. That this is not just about the conflict at hand. It is about making sure that this conflict can be used as a learning point to help everyone learn and grow, right? With a traditional emotional intelligence framework, because of the power dynamics involved in our systems and structures, we tend to, what's the word I'm looking for? Over or supersede and superimpose our own biases onto the other people. At that point, we focus on solving for the problem and not solving for the people having the problem. When you tap into culturally competent emotional intelligence, you are solving for the people having the problem. Because when you solve for the problem is a problem. It's the people having the problem that have to continue working together because there's going to be other problems that come up, right? So focusing on the problem is never the solution. The solution lies in the people. Culturally competent emotional intelligence focuses on the people so that the people can come up with the solution, so that the people are the solutions. And so these are just three things that that by just reframing emotional intelligence and adding a layer of cultural competence to it, cultural competence training, these are the just three things that you can have exponential and immediate benefits on. And like I said, I just really felt compelled to create this framework because, as I spoke about on Friday, the traditional emotional intelligence framework, while it is powerful, it is also not powerful for everybody because of its historical buildup. Because if you don't take your cultural biases, if you don't take your personal biases, your cognitive biases, the overt, covert, hidden ones, explicit, implicit, hidden biases into account, if you don't take your cultural awareness into account, your cultural sensitivity into account, cultural humility into account, and culturally responsive actions into account, then you are subverting somebody else's lived experiences. You are being intelligent with them despite their story, not because of it. Cultural competence allows you to step into that space of because you are who you are. And that's why it's so powerful. And yes, all about accountability and actionable response. Tanya, thank you so much for joining in. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments right now. And like I said, this is a training that I do. It's a whole certification. And so if you are interested in this, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can talk to you more about it. I do have some resources, some free resources, as well as more about what this program involves and entails and so on. So don't hesitate at all. And if you just want to have a strategy call and you want to pick my brain, I'm open to that too. I do have pick your brain sessions, and it's interesting because they're called, pick Dr. AJ's brains, but anybody, any single person that's worked with me will tell you, you get a lot more clarity when you let me pick your brain. So that's why I call it pick your brain session, not pick my brain session. But no, all jokes aside, it is called pick Dr. AJ's brain. But however you want, however I can help you on this journey towards cultural competence, there are a whole plethora of ways to reach me. Here is my email address as a last thing. So please make sure if you want to reach out, please reach out. And if you like this video, please go to my YouTube channel at AJ Rao LLC and subscribe and hit on that little bell button so you know when my next videos are coming up, and you can get all of this amazing content. All of my previous content is also on that channel. So please go subscribe, and I will be back on Friday with our Focus Friday Live. And until then, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, powerful week of manifesting and practicing cultural competence throughout your whole days and whole nights and whole lives. All right. I'll see you guys on Friday. Bye.